Speak version equals 1.0 XMLNS equals http://www.w3.org/2001/10/synthesis. XMLNS. MSDTS equals https://www.w3.org/2001/MSDTS Lang equals NUS. Voice name equals NUS Neural. MSDTS. Express as style equals SAD. Style degree equals 1.8. Prosody rate equals -18%. Pitch equals -10%. I am 95 years old. I was a young bride of 19 when I married my first husband, Harold. He was in the war, and I was promised a life of luxury with him as a high-ranking officer in the Army. Little did I know, after the war, he never paid child support or maintenance. I raised our 2 kids on my own in a tiny apartment in Kansas City. I remember the long nights, the scarcity of food, and the cold winters without heat. I was completely wrong to believe that marriage meant love and security, but it turned out to be another lie. They lied to us about love, about relationships, and about the value of our youth. As I look back, it pains me to admit that I was just a young girl trying to fit in with the times. We were all taught to be submissive, to obey our husbands, and never question authority. I was never educated enough to understand the world outside my home. But, as I grew older, I realized that my generation was not only ignorant, but also foolish. In the 1950s, it was common for women like me to be told that they were lucky to have a job, any job, as long as they didn't get married. They lied to us about our potential, about our abilities, and about our worth. We were nothing but domestic servants at best and sex objects at worst. In the 1960s, things began to change, but not for the better. The war was over, and more men were coming back to their families, but with PTSD and trauma. I remember my own family, struggling to cope with my husband's behavior after the war. We were living in a different era, an era of repression and fear. The men, the authorities, and the society in general wanted us to stay home, keep quiet, and be good wives. They didn't want to hear our stories, our struggles, or our pain. They wanted us to pretend that everything was okay, that we were living the American dream. But I remember the pain, the anger, and the frustration that many of us felt. We felt trapped in our marriages, trapped in our roles, and trapped in our lives. I remember the long nights, the tears, and the screams that went unheard in those cold, dark apartments. As I grew older, I began to realize that I wasn't the only one who was suffering. There were thousands of women like me, all over the world, living in silence, living in pain, and living in fear. We were the invisible, the unseen, and the unheard. But one day, something inside of me changed. I don't know what it was, but it was like a switch had been flipped. I began to speak out, to share my story, and to tell the truth about our lives. I started talking to other women, to our children, and to anyone who would listen. I remember the first time I spoke out. I was in my 60s, and I was at a women's conference in New York City. I stood up, and I shared my story with hundreds of women who were there to hear me. It was liberating, and it was empowering. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, heard, and understood. I felt like I was finally free from the lies, free from the pain, and free from the fear. I began to write, to speak, and to advocate for women's rights. And then, one day, I realized that I had a story to tell that nobody wanted to hear. They didn't want to hear about my pain, my struggles, and my triumphs. They didn't want to hear about the lies that were told to us, the repression, and the fear. They wanted to listen to the stories of the winners, the successful, and the happy. They didn't want to hear from the victims, the survivors, and the silenced. I was one of those silenced voices, one of those invisible women who had been trapped in a life that was not mine. As I look back, I realize that my story is not unique. It's a story that's been told by millions of women all over the world. It's a story of pain, of struggle, and of triumph. It's a story of resilience, of courage, and of hope. And that's what I want to share with you. I want to share my story with you, not to pity me, not to feel sorry for me, but to understand me. I want you to understand the pain, the struggle, and the triumph that many of us have gone through. I want you to know that it's not just my story, it's your story too. It's the story of your mother, your grandmother, your wife, or your sister. It's the story of the women who have been silenced, the women who have been invisible, and the women who have been unheard. I want you to know that our stories matter. I want you to know that our voices matter. I want you to know that our lives matter. And I want to share my story with you, not just to tell it, but to help you understand the world we live in today. The world is different now, but the lies are still the same. The repression is still there, and the fear is still present. But I want to leave you with a message of hope. We, the women, we are the ones who have been silenced, who have been invisible, and who have been unheard. We are the ones who have been lied to, who have been oppressed, and who have been marginalized. But we are also the ones who have risen up, who have spoken out, and who have fought back. We are the ones who have created a world that is different, a world that is more just, more equal, and more free. And I know that you are part of that world. I know that you are part of that movement. I know that you are listening, and I know that you care. And for that, I am grateful. If this reached your heart, please subscribe. I still have things to say. /prosody, /mstts, express as, /voice, /speak.